He's the assistant Democratic leader and co-chair for the Biden campaign. Congressman, thank you for waking up early, for being with us on our maiden voyage here. Tell me, is a spending deal going to get done?
I really hope so. First of all, let me congratulate you. You're going to make a terrific trio for me to hang out with on weekends.
I like that.
Thank you so much. Great. Look, I really believe that the Speaker will get this across the line, because I think he's going to come to the conclusion that we have to govern, and he will need Democratic votes to do it, and he will get them. It's happened before. Simone just mentioned how this happened the most recent time. But you can go all the way back to saving the automobile industry, that the Democrats had to provide the votes. Go to saving the banking industry, we had to provide the votes. They love to talk. They have a real hard time walking. And so we are going to once again do what's necessary for the American people to continue to stabilize their lives, prepare for their futures, and lay a good foundation for the maintaining of this democracy.
Assistant Leader Clyburn, NBC News has reported that President Biden and Speaker Johnson spoke on Wednesday, and in that conversation, Speaker Johnson urged the president to consider some of the executive actions that the speaker suggested to the president in a letter in December. The president did send a immigration bill to Congress. It was 13 point. He sent an immigration bill at the beginning. He also sent in this funding request a bill that had a little over $13 billion for border security. What is really going on here? Are we going to see some actual immigration reform? Is this number is where we're going to land? Talk to us a little bit about the immigration pieces of this, because there is there's a crisis at the southern border because of the lack of infrastructure that is there to process people.
Absolutely. And we are all in to get this done. And the president is willing to use his executive authority. But this is not President Biden's issue. This is the country's issue. And all of us ought to be participating in finding a resolution to it. This has been going on ever since I've been in the Congress. In fact, before I came to Congress, Ronald Reagan had his issues with this. And I will never forget when we once again got double-crossed, when Javier Becerra, who's now the Secretary of Health and Human Services, he and I worked on this in the House. We thought we had to deal with the Senate, and at the last minute, the Republicans pulled the rug out from under us. President Biden is aware of this history, and he is willing to do what is necessary with the executive authority to get this done. But in order to sustain this, for this to be a permanent fixture, Congress has to act. And the president is willing to negotiate on that as well. He's made that very clear. There's nobody I know in the Democratic Party who is against solving this problem. We need to come to the table in order to do so.
Congressman, in addition to the president having to negotiate with Speaker Johnson, you also have the president running for re-election. And in the midst of that, he has to deal with the other president, if you will, Donald Trump, who has, how shall we put it, put a lot of stuff out there about the Biden economy. I'd like you to listen to how President Biden has responded to some of these charges by President Trump.
When there's a crash, I hope it's going to be during this next 12 months, because I don't want to be Herbert Hoover. The one president, I just don't want to be Herbert Hoover.
He's acknowledging that my economy is doing pretty darn well because he doesn't want that to continue. And by the way, the idea that he wants to see a crash in the next 12 months, doesn't want to be Herbert Hoover, he has to understand, he's already Herbert Hoover. He's the only other president who lost jobs during his term.
He's already Herbert Hoover. I think it's going to take that level of engagement by the president on two fronts. One, negotiating at the table with Speaker Johnson, but then also doing the clapback on some of the noise coming from the presidential campaign. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I'm so pleased he is the president do that. He and I talked about that last week. He has been very, very reticent about getting into this kind of a campaign. The president wants to continue to move forward. He would love to maintain an atmosphere within which we can find compromise on all of these issues, and he would rather not engage in this kind of campaign. But it's going to be required. That's what his constituents want to see him do. They want him to show the fight that I know is in him. I've known this guy for a long, long time. He's not going to be my bastard. But those kinds of reactions or clapbacks, as you call them, we call it something else down in Gullah Geechee country. But that's the kind of stuff that he's going to have to do in order to engage our constituents. And he's told me in no uncertain terms, he's perfectly willing and capable of doing it.
If we could take a turn, Assistant Leader, I want to talk about the impeachment inquiry that the House has opened up against President Biden. They have yet to show any facts or reasoning for this impeachment inquiry. But connected to that is Hunter Biden. We saw the president's son in Congress this week on Capitol Hill, surprisingly just showing up. I want to play, I think we have it, sound from, yes, this is the video of Hunter Biden showing up. I think we have sound from the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, with our colleague Mika Brzezinski earlier this week, talking about, they're telling me we don't have the sound. Well, Congressman, look, the question is, Hunter Biden, and a contempt vote is apparently going to be held next week. Hunter Biden's lawyers, though, are now saying that he is willing to now sit for a deposition if a new proper subpoena is entered. How are House Democrats strategizing around this? I will note I saw some very fiery things from House Oversight Democrats this week. They seem to have been prepared.
Well, I congratulate my colleagues on the Oversight Committee for bringing this issue to the forefront. Look, President Biden is more than a president. He's a father. Dr. Jill made it very clear that she is very concerned about how they're treating their son. This is an issue that we ought to pay close attention to, because if you are the party of family values, you ought to value family. They are not valuing family. They need to stop this foolishness. We have two committees. Let them pursue their work. But this grandstanding, going into secret so you can come out and interpret your views for the American people, why not have the hearing in open? Let the public look in. Maybe we will all learn a little more about how we ought to conduct ourselves when we are faced with these kinds of challenges. That's what being a public servant is all about. That's what being the president of the United States is all about. It's showing the country how we should act and react in time of crises. And there's nothing more personal than to have a family crisis like they had with the addiction of their son and how he worked to overcome that addiction. We ought not be piling on. Well, if he's broken the law, then we have a process for that. We should not have these open forays into people's private lives, showing pictures of them in vulnerable situations. That is not the way you demonstrate leadership in these United States of America. I am so disappointed that the leadership of that committee is allowing this to happen.
Assistant Leader, I want to dig a little bit further on Simone's point, because I think it's a very good point, particularly relative to the politics. You've seen a more, to put it in street terms, aggressive stance by Democrats, particularly when you look at someone like Congressman Crockett in congressional hearings, who are pushing back on a lot of the narratives that are emerging around impeachment, around the economy and other aspects of what Congress is doing. Is that sort of organically happening in the House? Or is that something where there is a level of conversation and coordination to say, you know what, we're now going to be on the front line of the Biden reelect effort, both in terms of how we're going to push public policy and as well as how we're going to engage politically?
I think it's more organic than any kind of planned activity. We Democrats, because we're so diverse, we leave it up to members in order to conduct themselves the way they think they should, because we represent such diverse congressional districts. And that means that our leader, Hakeem Jeffries, who's doing a great job coordinating all of this, keeping it together, as diverse as our caucus is, I think you've seen a kind of unity that no one has ever seen before, simply because we maintain our focus as a party, but we give each individual the freedom to be him or herself in the way they think they should be for their constituent. So this is just a natural, organic way of responding to the other side. So we don't sit down in a room someplace and say, let's gin this up, let's gin the other up. We just simply say, let's keep the people over the politics, and let's pursue the agenda that will do good for the American people, and let the politics fall where they may.
Congressman James Clyburn, between the spending showdown and the president heading back to South Carolina in just 2 weeks, I suspect we're going to be speaking with you again very soon. Thank you, sir.